So 8 Senate Democrats breaking rank, voting with Republicans to reopen the government and exposing deep divisions within their own party.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is now facing calls to step aside. Democrat Congressman Ro Khanna writing he is no longer effective and should be replaced. As Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib says, Schumer is out of touch with the American people.
So Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is one of the 8 Democrats who crossed the aisle to advance the bill. And it looks like officially tomorrow we're going to have an open government and end the longest shutdown in American history. Senator John Fetterman joins us now, and his book is now out today. It's called Unfettered, and it's really your life. And Senator, first off, how relieved are you that the government's going to be open?
I mean, so relieved. I think my party crossed a line of now putting 42 million Americans with their SNAP benefits and making flying less safe and that kinds of chaos and not paying our military. I mean, that was a red line for me that I can't cross as a Democrat. And I think that's been described country over the party. And now I think that's been the truth throughout it, and it's only wrong to shut our government down, and I'm relieved. But the people now that are going to get paid and fed and millions of Americans, they're going to be flying now, that's going to be made more safe and restored.
So Senator Axios has a piece this morning that says Chuck Schumer was talking to the moderate Democrats, pulled them privately aside and said, I know you want to open up the government after 2 weeks. But don't do that. Don't cave to the Republicans. Did he ever talk to you? He knew how you were going to vote. Did he ever talk to you about it?
Absolutely no. I was not in a conversation, or I never got any outreach. Everyone understood. I really kind of led the charge back in March. And then I said, I know we'll be back in September. And I said, I know where my vote will be then, too. It's always a hard yes to keep our government open. I mean, that's my principle because it's wrong to shut our government down. And now we knew that we would put those 42 million Americans for SNAP and paying our military and, the Capitol Police. I mean, people have went 5 weeks without being paid. I mean, that's a violation of my core values, and I think it's our party's as well.
So, Senator, you came in as somewhat an outsider. And by the way, I was wrong, totally wrong about you. I thought you were going to be a radical, and you've been totally different than that. Who is running the show now in the Democratic Party, in the Senate, in the House?
No one really knows. And I think my values are reflected in my vote and the things that I support here. And if that might put me at odds with parts of my party, I'm okay with that. I mean, we need to be a big party, a big tent party. So for me, it's like these are pretty reasonable. I mean, my party's always been opposing shutting our government down. I'm not sure why it's controversial now to vote these things. And I refuse to put all these people in the middle of this political kinds of brinkmanship.
So I want you to hear what Lindsey Graham said about you last night with Sean Hannity. Watch.
Senator Schumer is probably toast. He's probably can't survive in this environment. The question is, can Senator Fetterman? I think Senator Fetterman has got a hell of a story to tell to the people of Pennsylvania. I've been up here doing the best I can, and I think people are looking for that kind of attitude, not the Schumer attitude. They're looking for people to say, I will listen to both sides, and I'll use my own judgment, not be told what to do. All I can say is that we held our ground. The government is open. We're going to have a healthy debate about health care, and there's one person that had a lot to do with this we've never talked about much, and that's Donald J. Trump.
Your reaction?
My reaction is what I said earlier. I am truly elated that our government is going to reopen for all of the millions and millions of Americans. Now will have their lives brought back to normal. And now Senator Graham, I agree with him on several of the foreign policies now, and we have collaborated on those things. In fact, we really both agreed that striking the Iranian nuclears was entirely appropriate and necessary. So I follow, I think, the truth in those situations, regardless of the letter after their names. For me, where is our party? Our party is trying to figure our way forward, and mine's going to be an honest projection of where the direction and the kind of values that our party should embrace, and that's going to play out. But for me, I have no regrets. I've been very proud of the votes that I've made since I've been here as a senator.
Senator Fetterman, we were reading your book over the weekend and yesterday, and I took a lot of notes. I wanted to just reach out and hug you while I'm reading a lot of this because my heart was broken for you. You said that when you became senator, you never thought you'd be a senator. In fact, when you won, you said, quote, "I felt nothing." You said your family couldn't even get you out of bed. It was the worst 2 years of your life. You were depressed, you had the stroke, you had a heart condition. Your debate performance, you said, was one of the worst ever in politics. You said you lost the love of your family. Your kids avoided you. You said you've always kind of been a loner. You had few close friends. You love to stay at home and watch movies with your family and your kids. And now you're a senator. You have to talk to all of your constituents. And you've shocked a lot of us. I thought you were so progressive when you ran as a senator. And then you sat down with that interview that Selena Zito did at your house with Dave McCormick and his wife. I know y'all have gone to dinner with them as well. So why the change? Was it because you almost lost your life? Your heart did stop at one point. So why the change? And why do you want to be senator? After reading this, you said you really don't like crowds. You have a small group of friends.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess medically, I technically died. Yeah, during the process, and it was very sobering when I woke up, and the doctors weren't able to even discuss in terms of months at that moment, and it's been. It was obviously very difficult, but I've emerged, and I'm grateful to sit in this chair right now and have this conversation with you right now. For me, it's like I really wanted to have a very honest book about and describe that journey because I think it's a very important conversation to have. And since I started talking about these things, I've had conversations from reach out from members of Congress or parents. And actually their children as well, too. People encounter me and they say, hey, thank you. And now I got help, or I decided not to do the awful choice. So for me, my message has been very, very simple. If anyone feels lost or they're in the throes of depression, I beg people, please stay in this game because I promise you will get better because 3 years ago, I was in the depths of that depression, and now I've emerged as a United States Senator, and I've been right now in the front of the middle thing, and now proud to reopen our government, stand with Israel, and also I am truly grateful.
So, Senator, what's next for Senator Fetterman? Governor, re-election for Senate, maybe running for president?
My future is to celebrate Thanksgiving, and it's like, and to celebrate, and we have to find a way forward. It's like I am so profoundly, after my father had a similar kinds of medical situation, we both turned to each other and said, we should both be dead. And here I am. And ironically, after I nearly died from my stroke, and then I reached the point where I decided to take myself out. And that's also part of the truth of the brutality of the course, how difficult politics are. And now I've lost the taste to fight, and I refuse to use these kinds of terms or derogatory terms and things. I spend my time here in the Senate trying to find a way forward, and I believe Pennsylvania keeps people honest and remembering that there are two sides. And that doesn't make them fascists or terrible people. They're trying to destroy our democracy. Now, that's where I'm at. And I really just define how grateful I am to be right here.
Yeah, I promise you, if you pick up the book, you're definitely going to be inspired. It's raw, it's honest, and the best chapter is yet to be written. It's straight ahead for you, Senator. So pick up on Fetter today. Thanks for telling your story.
Thank you, Senator. God bless you.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Waters, along with Kennedy, Harold Ford Jr., Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. The knives are out for Chuck Schumer. Liberals are grabbing their pitchforks, ready to give him the full Joe Biden treatment after his shutdown mess resulted in missed paychecks, flight misery, and starving SNAP recipients. But no tangible Obamacare wins for the Dems. President Trump sums it up the best.
What message do you have for Schumer tonight?
Well, I think he made a mistake in going too far.
Going too far, how?
Well, he just went too far. He thought he could break the Republicans, and the Republicans broke him.
Throwing Schumer under the bus is quickly becoming the new political litmus test for Democrats.
My guess is that he won't be leader of the party in 2027 after this election, unless something really surprising happens.
Respect his service, but time to move on.
It's time for you to gracefully make way for a new generation.
The leadership of the Democratic Party in many respects is way out of touch with where Democrats in general are.
And when it comes to his poll numbers, CNN's data guru is putting a fork in Chuck's career.
The word of the day is terrible, 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 terrible. To quote another Charles Barkley when it comes to Chuck Schumer. Look at this. Least popular Dem Senate leader ever. He's underwater with Democrats. His own party, he's underwater. He's at -4 points. That makes him the least popular guy for a Dem Senate leader going all the way back since the mid-1980s.
Terrible, 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 Dana Perino.
Well, yes. Have you ever seen him give a floor speech?
Yes.
There's never been a time when he isn't reading it. Like, he has to read Good Morning. And it kind of drives me crazy in the newsroom when I see him. I do think he's struggled since he's there because he's not a tactician and he's also bad on policy. So you can be bad on one or bad on the other. It's very rare that you're good on both. McConnell, good on both. Thune, good on both. Harry Reid was good on both. And in this situation, the changes in the political realignment have moved faster than his staff can. Now, some of his staff over the years has cycled out because there are retirements, right? And I think a lot of the people in the Democratic Party are starting to see that. The Republicans went through this. They have a lot more youth on their side. They've got energy and excitement. And on the Democratic side, they're having not only intra-fighting, but they're having generational fighting as well. The other thing is that who's going to do it better than Chuck Schumer is not a ringing endorsement. Okay, and without him, do they fall apart? I'm not exactly sure where this goes. But also, he was the one that was saying from the very beginning about the shutdown, this gets better for us every day. And the biggest problem, in my opinion, is this happens on the Republican side too. When you gin up the base and convince them that you can win something that you do not have the votes to win, you are going to make them mad. You're going to lose, and when you cave, they're going to take it out on you.
Greg?
You know, the big problem with this story, and it's a big problem with a lot of stories, Jesse, language. Everyone would do a lot better if they stopped using the word cave, because when somebody wants to come to an agreement and you said they caved, then they will be less inclined to agree with you in the future. Imagine if you had a spat with your spouse, or an argument with your child, or you were pulled over by the police, or you're in court, and somebody, the opposition, agrees with you on a point, and you said, ha, you caved.
Right.
That's really stupid. I think that word creates a resistance to cooperation, and it's funny because the Republicans don't do it as much, but the Dems even do it to themselves. I think it creates that prison of two ideas where you have to be on one or the other. Do you agree, Harold?
I think largely, yeah.
You caved. All right. This whole Democrat tantrum is so revealing because they're castigating each other for ending Trump's shutdown. When before they said Trump's shutdown was like killing kids and causing planes to crash. It's like saying this movie sucks. Why aren't they making a sequel? It's completely contradictory, which means they're only doing it as a political stunt They didn't care about sick kids or starving kids. And so they're screaming about an imaginary problem, but they scream louder when the imaginary problem goes away. My only regret is that I didn't get to see reporters frantically looking for that one starving child in the United States. I don't think there is one starving child in the United States, or we would have seen that person. And then if they found that person, they would not be able to film it because the starving would have nothing to do with SNAP. It would have to do with the fact that both the parents are on drugs or something crazy like that. So that it's just like, it's a bummer that we can't see how the press would move forward on this story. Again, if you watched The Five, you would have seen this coming. I think it was day one, Dana. You said this is not going to end well for the Democrats. Yeah. Let's fast forward. And we understand the clarity of it. Just, put the bill there and sign it. But the Dems hate clarity. They want to argue about the extension of a subsidy for the ACA bill that will go right to insurance companies. And all Trump is saying, hey, I'm going to give you a check for $2,000. This is why, the Democrats embraced trans. It was the opposite of clarity. No, it's not male and female. It's a whole array of pronouns, non-binary this, non-binary that, 80 different ways to call a sex. That was very confusing. We don't do confusing.
Definitely not on cable. Harold, do you value clarity?
I do. It's good to be back. I'd say a couple of things. Two things can be right. I think Democrats, I differ with everyone around here, but I think Democrats are beating up themselves. I think we had a great last week and a half. I didn't want the government to be shut down for 40 days. And the blame game, whether it was Republican or Democrat, well, I'll let the polls and the people sort that out. But I do know we did have some sort of a referendum on this just a week ago where Democrats had unambiguously an incredible night and from coast to coast, from the south to the north, including in Mississippi and Georgia. When I say two things can be right, Democrats got a lot of what they wanted out of this. The problem Democrats had during the shutdown is they had no coherent message and they weren't cohesive. You had one group saying we want to extend or undo all the Medicaid cuts that were part of what President Trump calls the big, beautiful bill. That was not going to happen. You had another group saying they wanted to extend the subsidies that Greg just talked about under the ACA. Then you had another group that wanted both. Then you had another group that I don't know what they were talking about. So you look at all of this. And at the end of the day, I think Tim Kaine and Jeanne Shaheen and Angus King and John Fetterman and others showed a great deal of maturity saying, look, the election showed that affordability was the winner from the standpoint, Jesse, not that I want things to be unaffordable, but it is the issue on every voter's mind, be it Democrat or Republican. I do think President Trump, slightly precarious, if not could get even more precarious, to begin to say that people aren't feeling economic hardship. I've said around this table before, there are a number of politicians at the national level who try to tell people you're doing better than you think you are, who are no longer in politics. That's a dangerous thing to go down. Finally, on this thing with Chuck Schumer, there's no doubt that the pressure of Nancy Pelosi saying it would be her last term is around him. The urgency of the many members of the Democratic Party, whether you like some of them or not, this younger group, including those around the country who are winning as moderates. Mamdani was the outsider, the outlier in this last race. You look at on Tuesday, you look at all the Democrats who won nationally, they were moderates. They came from my wing of the party. So I'm relieved and pleased by that. But Chuck Schumer has to understand is if you can't frame the victory, don't poo-poo on it like you voted against it. If you can't talk about what it is we want as a party, then maybe it's time for what some of these young Democrats are saying for new leadership and new voices at the top of the party.
Term limits. Maybe they should talk about term limits.
I'm for them.
You are?
I've been for them for years.
Really?
Wow. A politician in favor of term limits.
I would like to
It's a
disagree.
very interesting stance. Kennedy.
I don't think Chuck Schumer's old enough. I hope he's there for another 74 years. I think that's when stuff's going to get really, really interesting. And I don't know what a Schumer Democrat is. You look at the party, you know what an AOC and Bernie Democrat is. Absolutely. And you know what a MAGA Republican is. I do not know what these establishment Democrats stand for. I do know that the reason President Trump's message resonated with voters who were independent and apolitical is because of the economic pain and because of all of the high prices, the inflation that the Biden administration delivered. It was Trump talking about jobs. It was not Trump handing out dependency, which is what all that socialists have to offer here. So this thing is unsurprising that Chuck Schumer is under attack, not only from Republicans who want to talk about, potentially a plan, an economic plan that has more to do with class warfare, which is going to get very, very boring, especially if any of these younger voters want to move into upper brackets. He's also under fire from the progressives. The only friends that Chuck Schumer has left are Rachel Maddow and Hakeem Jeffries. Can you imagine being stuck in an elevator with those two? It's, reason to and take imagine what they say behind his back. Oh, it's not good. And Chuck can't even hear. He can't see. I don't think he's got any of his senses left. So the writing is on the wall for him. They don't have a cohesive message. And I hope they never pull this nonsense again. And when Hakeem Jeffries talks about affordability, things are unaffordable because taxes are too high. They're only going to get higher with these massive handouts for a cratering entitlement program like Obamacare that was destined to fail the second it was born.
And then last Tuesday, Democrats won every race across the country. I hear you, but you may be right, but the voters didn't say that.
Okay, but a fickle electorate is a healthy one. So if you have voters who are going from one party to another because their needs are not being met, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world.
Neither do I. I think it's wonderful. Both parties are going to try to make things more affordable.
It's a win for freedom, Harold. Thank you for being on my side.
It's a win for America.
Did he just?
Harold did.
I think you did.
Yeah, he caved. You caved.
I won.
No, you caved. I can't believe you just let her walk all over you.
My party won every race.
Okay.
You always make it about race.
Always say the same thing. Up next, and they called us weird. Liberals are locking lips with Jazzy's feet.
The Democrat Party is in the midst of an identity crisis, and California Governor Gavin Newsom is stoking the fire. Newsom is calling out his fellow Democrats, blaming them for walking away from the masculinity crisis impacting young men and boys.
I say this as a Democrat. We need to own up to the fact that we ceded that ground. We walked away from this crisis of men and boys. This is an issue our party needs to address. We can't afford, from an electoral perspective, to lose, but these folks. But we also can't on the basis of our values and what we claim to care about and represent. And I say that on behalf of women that need better men as well.
He might have diagnosed the problem, doesn't have the solution.
I am begging people to stop giving credit to Gavin Newsom for the empty words he says when we can judge him entirely by his actions. And he is overseen in California where even the most radical DEI policies, anti-education policies, trans activism, whatever it is, he has overseen that. And he can claim to not be as extreme as he is, but he is no moderate.
And no matter what he says, he's still beholden to a base that screams toxic masculinity.
Well, and that's the entire problem. It's not just that Democrats walked away from the masculinity crisis. They created it in the first place by demonizing young men and convincing them that they were the problem, that their very existence was oppressive to everyone else in the country.
And to our resident male today, you say there's a crisis of masculinity, Dakota.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been saying this for a while. I mean, every single problem that we face on the planet right now is because of weak men, right? Weak men are not standing up. They're not principally based. They're not standing up for women. They're not, and we don't have to stand up for women because women are weak, but because they're that valuable, right? Women should have equal rights, but they should never have equal value on the planet because they should not be valued at the low level that we are as men, right? Like they should be valued and they should be sacred to us.
I love that. That's beautiful, Dakota. Well said.
All eyes are on the Supreme Court as we await a decision on funding for the federal food stamp program. Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley joins us now. Jonathan, welcome to you. Everybody's talking about this exchange between Scott Jennings and Rep. Clyburn, who is forced to admit that he does favor judges forcing President Trump into spending cash that, by the way, Congress never approved. Watch this exchange. I'll get your reaction.
Do you believe as a member of Congress, a judge can compel the executive to spend money that you haven't appropriated?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
Yes, I do.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought we didn't want kings.
Nobody
Maybe we
wants
need
kings.
king for a day. What do we need? I mean, that is
Judge-
literally a king spending money that is not
The
appropriated.
judge is not a king.
No, you're turning the president into one if he
I
can
don't know.
spend without appropriation.
I mean, if this was on, if this was on the other side, I'm sure we would be hearing Rep. Clyburn singing a different tune. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, it's an extraordinary moment, and that really did capture it. You have a judge here saying, find the money, and and Congress will make it right later. What the administration is saying is that Congress has committed this money to various programs, and if we take the money from those programs, those are unfunded. So it's a double whammy in that you're asking me to spend money in a way that was not appropriated and to take money from a way that was appropriated. And the district court just sort of shrugged and said, well, do it, and Congress will make it right later. So the Supreme Court has a curious situation here because there is a degree of judicial avoidance. You don't want to necessarily render a decision on constitutional law that you don't have to. And here, they probably don't have to. They know that the House is going to come in as early as tomorrow, presumably will reopen the government and turn the spigots on. And so the question is whether the justices would prefer to kick this can down the road, at least for 24 hours, where this would then be declared moot.
Solicitor General Sauer responded to the ruling from the Rhode Island judge and said this: the irreparable harms of allowing district courts to inject themselves into the shutdown and decide how to triage limited funds are grave enough to warrant a stay. Considering his role in this White House, what does that tell you about where they're going to take this next, Jonathan?
Well, they're clearly gearing up for a fight here. This is becoming part of a broader issue for them. It's really not about SNAP. Actually, the administration has been working with judges as to how to fund this. And now, of course, the government's about to reopen, so it'll become a moot point. But this is part of a broader issue, that they feel like this is a Lilliputian attack, that you've got hundreds of district court judges that are effectively running parts of the executive branch or joining it with national injunctions. And the Supreme Court has sided with the administration on that. They've pushed back, and they've told these district courts that they've got to be careful here, to leave to the political branches what is left to those branches and to focus on the issues at hand. This is as far as a district court could conceivably go in ordering a president to use his discretion to move funds around in the executive branch. And that does not sit well with many people in the administration.
I want to finish off with these words from Senator Schumer, who decided to jump in and rip the president for the Supreme Court ask here. Senator Schumer said this.
In another act of brazen cruelty, the Trump administration is going to the Supreme Court again to prevent hungry kids from getting fed. The cruelty of this administration is endless.
Considering 42 million Americans do depend on these SNAP benefits, putting on your political hat for the last few minutes here, Jonathan, I mean, when they present it like that, are they winning with the American public on this issue?
It's hard to say, because Schumer is the one that kept on refusing the clean CR, and this would not have been an issue. And so it's hard to say how the public will react to this. But the fact that the Democrats have agreed now to reopen the government indicates that they see a slight change here. It's just that the only reason I was smiling is that Chuck Schumer is the last person who should be running around saying, my God, how did we get here? I mean, he's the captain on this Titanic, and he was steering towards the iceberg. And so I'm not sure that he's the best person to be making this objection.
Fair enough. Said as only you can say. Jonathan Turley, thank you so much for that.
So he's the Democrat senator who marches to the beat of his own drum on Capitol Hill. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman unapologetic about voting with Republicans 15 times to get the government up and running.
Bernie Sanders said the vote was a horrific mistake. Governor Gavin Newsom called it pathetic and a surrender. Poll after poll found more Americans on both sides of the aisle blaming Republicans.
I don't need a lecture from whether it's Bernie or the governor in California, because they are representing very deep blue kinds of populations. I'm going to cite one of the new governor-elects saying that my election is not a green light to continue this shutdown, because I promise you this isn't a political game.
He has talked. Laura Trump joins me now, host of My View with Laura Trump. Laura, great to have you with us. You know, he was mixing it up there with Sunny Hostin. A lot of hostility on the part of some Democrats and liberals against John Fetterman. They do not like that he speaks out, and he's obviously in a very important state.
Yeah, well, it's so refreshing, Martha, to see that there is someone like John Fetterman out there, a politician who does the right thing, regardless of the pressure he feels from his own party, or, you know, a TV host like Sunny Hostin. They're getting aggressive with him as well. He reminds me of someone else I know. His name is Donald J. Trump. This is what people love. They love authenticity, and they love someone who is willing to stand up and fight for the right things. And you're right, John Fetterman voted every single time with Republicans to reopen the government, to fund the government. When I sat down with him for an interview for my show, he talked about the fact that he doesn't ever agree, no matter who's at fault, with shutting down the government. Look at the havoc that it wreaked across our country. Look at the flights right now. Look at the fact that you have, you know, people who rely on government assistance who haven't been able to get SNAP benefits, et cetera. They would rather make a political play on the left and you know, make it hurt the entire country than do something that is right. And I think it's really nice that you have John Fetterman out there, who one time, Martha, we all looked at and said, he's kind of French, he's kind of far left. He's now the most common sense in the Democrat Party, and how refreshing it is that he's continuing to be that way.
You know, it is so interesting, and I think it was really a life lesson for all of us who covered his stroke and who raised questions that I think were legitimate at the time. In fact, he even said, as part of his book tour coverage, that maybe he should have dropped out. But he was resilient in such a truly American, courageous fighter way. And he talks here about, this was in the interview that you did with him, about the personal impact on him of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the attempted assassination that happened in his own state of your father-in-law. Watch.
After the tragedy with Charlie Kirk, people deserve to be able to grieve, and the appropriate space to grieve and acknowledge the horror of what happened. Pennsylvania, that's where the president was also shot. And now I was 30 miles away. Imagine where our nation would be if that could have gone in that same way.
You know, he does have a humanity and an authenticity to him. And he also relates to, I think, the working class of America, Laura, which raises questions about him politically. Whether or not, you know, he might lean more towards becoming a Republican or an independent. I asked him this question about whether or not he would ever run for president. Watch this.
2028 is a long time. It's far away. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? And so where I'm at right now, it's like I've been very, very unapologetically a supporter of Israel. And I believe in a secure our border. And I believe it's wrong to shut our government down. And that may have put me at odds with parts of my base.
You know, do you think he is someone, if he stays a Democrat, Laura, who could pull away some of those working class voters who have gravitated to Donald Trump, President Donald Trump's Republican Party?
Well, I would say John Fetterman has a lot more in common with Donald Trump right now than he does with most in his own party. And like so, you know, he is a bit of a unique individual in that way. What I would advise the Democrats, not that I'm in the place of giving them advice, if you want to win anyone back into your party that has left, you ought to start acting more like John Fetterman. It's common sense. It's what the American people want to see. And it's putting country above party. And we're grateful for that.
Yep. Well, he left the door open on the 2028 question. So always room for things to get interesting. Laura, thanks.
The Senate striking a deal to get the government back open, but the backlash is fierce from Democrats who are furious the bill leaves Obamacare subsidies untouched. My next guest says he will fight tooth and nail against any effort to take up the matter in the House. Let's bring in Texas Republican Congressman Chip Roy. So part of the deal, Congressman, that was struck that brought over those 5 extra Democrats that broke the filibuster was that they would hold a vote on these Obamacare enhanced tax credits. You're saying when that gets to the House, as far as you're concerned, that's a dead issue?
Well, John, great to be on. I mean, first of all, we're in the position where we're in right now. We're still waiting on the Senate to see if they're actually going to deliver and end the shutdown that they've caused. Let's be very clear that they've caused for the last 45 days. But we're in this position because President Trump has been leading. And President Trump has been delivering a strong message. In fact, just a couple of days ago, tweeting out or putting out on Truth Social that he believes that these subsidies ought to go to the American people so that they can use those in health savings accounts or in other ways to be able to go out and get care, because he understands the primary issue that some of us have been saying now for 5 or 6 years. When I first ran for Congress, health care was the #1 issue for me as a cancer survivor. And he understands that you shouldn't have to ask permission to get care. That's the central issue. Obamacare has broken the system, and the American people, they like that they have coverage, but when they realize that coverage doesn't equal care and that it equals enriching insurance companies, they're not so happy. And what's really going on here is Democrats have outed themselves. They are, in bed with the K Street lobby of the insurance companies, who basically 85% of their income is derived from federal taxpayers. $35 billion of which last year, John, came from people who never used their plan once. So Republicans are in a good position to go on offense. Donald Trump is leading us to go on offense. And I feel good about the message we can deliver on health care. Once we get the government open, Democrats get out of the way, Republicans can lead if we'll just stand up and do it.
So if I could read the nuance in your statement there, Congressman, I take it you're not for these enhanced tax credits and you're a no on that.
Well, those are our Biden credits from COVID, right? We're trying to go pre-COVID. We're trying to empower patients and doctors and not enrich insurance companies. So all of that matters. When 85% of the revenues from insurance companies are coming from federal taxpayers, you get the joke, right? Democrats have basically given it up. They've said, well, and by the way, Obamacare was created by Democrats. Not one Republican has ever voted for any of that structure. And now they want more money to go into the pockets of insurance companies.
Okay, so real quick, if I could, because we're just about out of time here. When the bill comes over from the Senate to the House, do you foresee any problems in not getting the government back open by the end of the week?
No, we've got strong support right now for what has been, brokered here by the president and by Republican leadership. We got to let the Senate do their job. But if they send something over like what we're hearing about, look, we're delighted to be able to keep the government moving forward, keep spending relatively flat, and then do our job, and then have a real debate about health care once the government's back open, so the American people are no longer suffering with crowded airports and all the things that Democrats caused.
All right, we'll be watching. Thanks for joining us, Congressman. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, John.
Good afternoon, and live from Texas, this is the Will Cain Show. It's Veterans Day. President Trump spending the morning honoring our troops and renewing the spirit of our forces with a battle cry.
Mr. President, why don't you drop an oorah real quick?
I will. Hoorah!
Hey, why don't you give him another oorah, Mr. President?
Hoorah!
And how about one last oorah for the crowd?
You want me to do another one? I'll do another one. Hoorah!
Some good news for our military worried about missing a paycheck. The long-awaited end to the longest shutdown in history is here. Sort of. Last night, the Senate passed legislation to reopen the government with a 60-40 vote, with the help of 8 Democrats. But it could last a few more days. Members of the House return to D.C. to vote on it tomorrow. And with that end in sight, many are asking, what was it all about? Why did we suffer a government shutdown? Well, it was laid out plainly in the New York Times by Ezra Klein. He wrote, Democrats were winning the shutdown. Why did they fold? To understand why, he writes, this shutdown will end with such a whimper. You need to understand the strange role of the ACA subsidies. Democrats said the shutdown was about the subsidies, but for most of them, it wasn't. It was about Trump's authoritarianism. It was about showing their base and themselves that they could fight back. It was about treating an abnormal political moment abnormally. There it is, laid plainly in black and white. It wasn't about Obamacare. It was about Trump derangement syndrome. And there is no coverage nor any cure to our knowledge at this point under Obamacare or any other health care coverage for Trump derangement syndrome. John Fetterman, one of the 8 Democrats who voted with Republicans to reopen the United States government, has said it shouldn't have been about Trump derangement syndrome. It should have been about everyday Americans.
Democrats had big wins last week, so you had momentum. Why give in now? Why bring a butter knife to a gunfight?
I don't need a lecture from whether it's Bernie or the governor in California, because they are representing very deep blue kinds of populations. The reality is 42 million Americans now not sure where their next meal is going to come from. And because we vote like that. Or people that haven't been paid for 5 weeks now, and that kinds of chaos. Those workers have to borrow more than $500 million, from their credit union just to pay their bills.
The political class has lost sight of those everyday Americans, of those workers. Yes, they suffer from TDS. President Trump points out they're pure lunatics.
He just went too far. He thought he could break the Republicans, and the Republicans broke him. But he did think that we have good policy, they have bad policy. And there's something, I don't know if it's Trump derangement or are they just crazed. They're like crazed lunatics.
That craze has forced them, has shoved them, has cornered them into now ensuring, in order to get their fight, in order to push back on their boogeyman of authoritarianism, in order to fight Donald Trump, they've made clear they'll let Americans suffer.
Many of my friends are unhappy. They think we should have kept our government closed indefinitely to protest the policies of the Trump administration. I share their opinions of this administration, but cannot accept a strategy which wages political battle at the expense of my neighbor's paycheck or the food for his children.
But those neighbors and those friends and those American workers don't have microphones, and they currently don't seem to be voting in Congress, because those that are in front of microphones stick with their lunacy.
I want to speak with my senator who just voted to kill 55,000 people a year. They just put us through specifically Senator King, because they just put us through 5 weeks of suffering to just say, okay, that's fine. We'll just let it slide. We'll just take away everyone's health care. He's a traitor, and people will die because of him.
Moving beyond Trump derangement syndrome, there is an interesting conversation, an important conversation about the future of American health care over Obamacare. And I don't know about you, but I would need to start at square number one. How did we get here? How did it get out of control? What was the failure of Obamacare? Let's go back in time.
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period. I will not sign a plan that adds one dime to our deficits, either now or in the future. The only thing this plan would eliminate is the hundreds of billions of dollars in waste and fraud, as well as unwarranted subsidies in Medicare that go to insurance companies.
Is that the way it played out over the last 15 years? Let's go over to the wall and take a look. First of all, it's plainly untrue that if you liked your health care plan or that you liked your doctor, you'd be able to keep them. Once Obamacare was instituted in 2013, almost immediately 2.6 million Americans lost their insurance on the individual insurance market. The vast majority of Americans get their health care coverage through their employer, but there were those among us who bought individual plans, who were promised that they could keep their doctor or they could keep their plan. It wasn't true for 2.6 million Americans. And we move forward in time, and Obamacare offered tax credits to those that bought plans through the Affordable Care Act, through the exchange, through Obamacare. And on paper, it looked pretty good. When you brought in the average premium tax credit, it looked like what you'd be paying for your premiums ranged from $153 to $113, affordable to most Americans. There's been a lot of talk about subsidies and whether or not the subsidies that were extended during COVID would continue. Now, if those subsidies do not continue, if they expire as they are set to do and as they were written in legislation to do, well, the market is unsustainable. The actual average monthly premium after expired tax credits looks like you'd be paying well over $600 a month in insurance. Still, the question sits there on the table for me and for you. How did Obamacare end up jacking up the prices for health care after promising to solve coverage and prices for all Americans?
Let's bring in Georgia Congressman Rich McCormick. Congressman, good morning to you. On the scheduling front, can we expect the government to officially reopen tomorrow?
I sure hope so. I'm looking forward to getting back to work and actually doing the people's will. I'm excited about it, and it's about time.
Okay, so one unnamed House Democrat characterized the deal this way. I feel like Republicans took our first and second born child, and we got a bundt cake in return. So a lot of Democrats are unhappy that their fight over health care is over for now. What are your reflections on the past 40-plus days and anything we can take away from this?
Well, it really worries me that the American people get the wrong message. I want to make sure that everybody realizes this is unprecedented. This has never been done in the history of America, where they actually shut down the government over a clean CR, something the Democrats had actually agreed on historically on funding at their COVID levels, something they voted for, something they also realized would not be permanent. They could never get this when they're in the majority, and they wanted to get this in the minority. If we gave in to them, this would change the way we did government forever, that you could rule from the minority. It's absolutely absurd. I'm glad we're past it. I hope it never happens again. I don't want to get rid of the closure vote, but what I would like to see is when we do something like this, if they do shut down the government again, that we fund the military, that we fund people who are actually working. People who don't work, fine, go home and don't get paid until you come back to work. But everybody's going to get paid. We know this already. So let's quit playing games and do the people's work.
I think you nailed the most important point of all of this. The Democrats had no leverage. You had a president who was not budging. You had a Republican Senate that was not budging. And so this was going to happen one way or another. Thank goodness for the American people that it is over sooner rather than later. Want to get your thoughts on this because today is, of course, Veterans Day. You are a Marine Corps helicopter pilot, Navy commander as well. What is your message on this Veterans Day, Congressman?
Well, first of all, thanks to all those who have served. It's about 5.5% of all the American population has served at one time or another. Less than 1% is actually active duty. I was with my fellow Marine Corps brethren last night. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm still dressed as. In Tun Tavern, Philadelphia is where we were born. 250 years ago, that brotherhood is still as strong as ever. It was great to be with my brothers and sisters at arms. Don't forget them, though. Their suicide rate is still over twice that of the American population. Make sure you're reaching out, that you're not just plugged in today, but always throughout the year. Check in on your buddies. Make sure we do the right thing for these people who understand sacrifice better than most.
Well, we thank you for your service every day, but especially today, as you're still in your bow tie from last night. It's a good look. It's a good look.
Late night. I thought you were doing it for us, Congressman, but we'll let it slide this time because it's
no, we expect a bow tie from you now every single time. Tis the season. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, you're the best. Yeah, thank you for staying up for us. We appreciate it. Happy Veterans Day to you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.